Hello, I'm Danny Jenkins, CEO and co-founder of ThreatLocker. I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of what the new ThreatLocker Ops product does. The first thing to note is ThreatLocker as a protection platform uses zero trust principles to only allow things that you need and only allows those things to do what they need to do. For example, we block software by default, and by blocking software by default, we're able to stop ransomware from running and also other malicious tools like remote access tools that might be bad. In addition to this, we can also control what the applications can do. We can control network traffic, we can control storage, and we can even control elevation in one central platform. And this type of approach is really effective at stopping malicious attacks. However, sometimes you want to know that there's either an indicator of compromise or even an indicator of attempted compromise. For example, a few years ago, I got a call from a customer that was using ThreatLocker protection on their server. They had RDP open on the web and somebody had connected to their server as a domain admin account. Now, when they connected, the first thing they did was disable their EDR. And ThreatLocker was still running because the tamper protection prevented them from disabling. For 3 days, this attacker sat on the server trying to run malicious tools, malware, Mimikatz, advanced IP scanners, and all of these tools were blocked. However, the customer didn't know that there was an attacker on their server. So what ThreatLocker has done is they've taken all of the data we collect, all of the network traffic, all of the execution data, the elevation, the storage, and even the Windows event log data, and we fed it through an engine called ThreatLocker Ops. Now, what you can do with that engine, at first, you can create policies of your own to trigger certain alerts or certain actions based on a certain behavior. For example, you may say that if someone elevates PowerShell, I want to know about it. Or if somebody makes more than 200 changes to my files, I want to know about that action. But in addition to this, ThreatLocker feeds a parent set of policies down to you with all known indicators of compromise, techniques, tactics, and procedures based on the MITRE ATT&CK framework, based on CISA's indicators of compromise, to tell you of known suspicious behaviors, either trying to or happening in your environment. Now, of course, if you're using our zero trust protection to begin with, most of these actions are going to be denied out of the box, but it's better that you know what they are. I'm going to show you a quick walkthrough of the interface here and what this looks like for you as a local admin. First of all, when you have ThreatLocker Ops enabled, you'll be able to go to this new page here. This is a list of ThreatLocker Ops policies. Now, policies can contain a number of conditions and number of actions. So you can pick, you apply to a certain group, but you can pick any condition of any action, such as the process, the full path, the source IP, the destination IP, the port, the encryption status, and things like that, any event log entries. All of these are available from this drop-down list. And you can have either conditions that all must match or any must match. So you could say, hey, if this IP scanner runs, or Angry IP runs, or this other advanced IP scanner runs, then I want to match these conditions. In addition to this, we then have actions. Now, those actions could be something as simple as creating an alert. And when we create an alert, we have 3 different types of alerts. We have information alerts. These alerts aren't going to go into your response center. They're not going to need responding to, but they do allow you additional information in the future if you want to say who logged on at this time or who logged off, or maybe there was an elevation of PowerShell that isn't worth creating a full alert to, but you want to know for additional information. We then have warning and severe. Severe essentially means that it's bad and we should look at it straight away. And warning means, hey, this might be something bad. But either way, these can go into the Ops Center. In addition to creating alerts in ThreatLocker, we can also push to your phone. We can call APIs such as your SIM or your SOC APIs. You can disable or enable policies of any module of ThreatLocker. So if you've got a storage control policy, you can enable or disable that. You could enable or disable application policies. You can isolate your machine. And what isolate your machine means is the machine won't be able to communicate with the network except with ThreatLocker. We can also lock down the machine, send emails, and like I said, send push notifications to your phone. So the next thing I'm going to do is in the response center, this is where all of our alerts go. So if something bad happens that is worthy of looking at an alert, we can go into the ThreatLocker Ops Alert Center here, and we can look at the ops. Now I'm going to show you here. I'm going to jump into my browser, and I'm going to jump back onto my PC. I'm going to actually just save a virus to disk, because what I've done here is one of the policies that I've set up is a couple of Windows Defender policies. So I can see here that one of them is Windows Defender has detected malware. In this case, what I've got is anything that matches event log ID 116, it's going to trigger. Now, I can add additional conditions because sometimes vendors reuse event log ID. So what I'm actually going to do as well is I'm going to add a second condition in here. I'm just going to look at my previous alerts because I know they're already in here. So if I go into my computers, I can also look at all previous alerts here when I go to the ThreatLocker Ops tab. So when I look at all my previous alerts, I'm going to look for Windows Defender. Windows Defender has detected malware. I can view the action log, and I can see here that we've got different areas. So the event description is Microsoft Windows Defender. So I'm also going to add that in just in case there are multiple applications using the same event log ID. So if I go into Windows Defender has detected malware, I'm going to add a second condition that says event log description contains this. And what I've done here is I basically said I'm going to increase the threat threshold. So what it's going to do is it's going to increase the threat level to about 50. Now, normally what we recommend is you set automatic isolation policies at 1,000, but you can use these numbers however you feel fit. In this case, it's just malware. It's not saying it's running. It's saying it was detected. We don't want to cause a massive panic. So I'm going to set it as a warning. I can put any variables in here, but most of the information is actually already available. So I'm going to save that policy and I'm going to deploy policies here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a piece of malware on this machine. I'm just going to use EICAR. This is a test virus string that will trigger any antivirus, just so we can see what would happen. So I'm going to go into my downloads. I'm going to create this test virus, test malware 2, for example. Here, immediately, Windows Defender has detected that malware was detected on my machine. If I now go into my response center, I have this new threat, and it says here, I've got a warning. There's one active alert for this computer. The threat level is currently 100, and the alert is Windows Defender has detected the malware. Now, when I click on this, I can see the alert. I can also see other alerts that's happening at the same time. I can see extra information, so I can click here, the event log. I can see that Windows Defender detected malware. I can see the date, time. It says that it detected EICAR, so that's really, really useful. I can also go through additional information, but before I do that, I want to actually create a few more alerts here because I'm going to show you what an attack pattern looks like. One of the techniques used by attackers is often to hide file extensions. So I'm going to trigger this one as well. So I'm going to save this one, but rather than saving it as a text file, I'm going to save it as I'm going to say test file 3 .doc.exe, for example. So this is a way of hiding the extension, making you think it's a doc file. So I'm going to save that into my downloads as well. And I'm also going to go off and I'm going to try and disable Windows Defender. It may have stopped me disabling that. Oh, I think this was just out of date, the screen, because it says it was already disabled, but we know it's not. So if I go into my manage settings, turn off my Windows Defender on my machine, I'll turn it on and then I'll turn it back off because I want to trigger that alert as well. So what I've done here is I've triggered 2 alerts for Windows Defender as well. And what we'll notice in the Windows event log here, we can see these alerts have actually come into the log here. So we can see Windows Defender was disabled, and that's obviously pretty bad. We can see there's currently 4 active alerts. So when I click on this now, I can see all of my alerts in one place. These here are the MITRE ATT&CK framework numbers. Some of our policies have them if they're relevant to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Some of them do not. So this is a technique or tactic. That's the number. And this one's masquerading a double file extension. So when we click on this, we can see that a file extension was created using Notepad. Of course, this is just me testing with docx.exe. So now that's an information alert. And the reason for that is because this would actually cause quite a lot of noise. We can also see an information alert that Windows Defender is enabled. And that's because I have an ops policy that also monitors turning it on. Because if somebody does turn it off, you want to make sure that it was turned back on, and you can see that in the information. Again, by default, these would not trigger a response in your response center. However, disabling Windows Defender would trigger a response, and Windows Defender detecting malware would. Now, another cool feature about this is you can have all of the information about the machine in one place, because what you want to know now as a SOC operator or an IT professional is, what do I do and how do I make a decision what to do? I can actually lock down this machine so the machine doesn't have any reads, writes, deletes, or anything. I can isolate it so it can continue to operate, but it's going to disconnect from the network. And I can just clear alerts if I say this was just a user downloading something and it's been blocked. So no harm, no foul. But before I make that decision, I want to know what else is happening on the machine. So I can see here all of the executes on my machine, and every single execute that's happened has been cross-referenced against VirusTotal. I can see all of the new files that were put on my machine, and we have this filter here to say known threats only. So in this case, we see all of the threats that are known malware. We can expand them because quite often some antiviruses will say things are malicious when they're not. So I'll give an example of that. Actually, we have putty here, for example, which is not malicious, but it could be used. Most antiviruses say it's undetected. However, these two say it's bad software. Installs, we've only got the test virus or the test doc file. So we can see here that all of these are malicious. Again, I can see this. I can make information in real time. I can go onto the network. I can see all network traffic on this machine, where it's going to, what the process is. Of course, I've got no malicious known activity here, but if I did, it would show up on the filter. In this case, I can see everything in real time, all of the details, and this helps me identify, okay, this is just normal traffic on this machine. I can see any elevation. So I can see here system settings were elevated. That's actually when I disabled the antivirus. So I can see any information about elevations. I can see Windows Terminal was elevated or details there. Again, with these elevations, if anything bad happens, they'll be flagged as well. And of course, storage actions as well. So we can see here before that I was deleting files, and we can see that we've been deleted. This allows you to paint a picture of, is there potentially something bad happening? Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is say this machine is clean. This is just a user downloaded virus, no harm, no file. So I'm going to remove the alert and say the machine is clean, clear to go, I'll just say. And you can write anything you want in there. And when I clear that, the alert is now gone, so I don't have to worry about it. Now, let's say, I want to give another example. Let's say something else bad happens now. So I've got a policy here that says auto block writes if a certain threshold has been exceeded. I actually have another one. I think I have a delete one as well. So I said auto block write access on a mass delete. So what this policy says is if the action type matches delete, so this is looking at your protected storage, so your network shares, your USB drives, your documents folder, or anything else that you've created a storage policy as a protected storage. So it's not just looking at temporary files being deleted in Windows. This is looking at your system, just the protected devices. We can see how many occurrences. So I've just put 5 in here. This would be very unusual to put 5 files being deleted, and you'd most likely create a false positive if you did that. But what I've done is I've enabled a storage policy. So if I just go to another tab here, because I want to show you this storage policy, what I have here on my storage control is I have a policy. If I include inactive, it's disabled by default across my organization, and it blocks write access to all storage devices. So when this policy is enabled, you can't write to network shares, you can't write to documents. Of course, this is a little bit extreme, but I want to make a point here. So you can't write to anything. So if this policy, if more than 5 deletes happen in a protected storage space, this policy is going to be enabled on the machine that it happens on. And again, it's whenever we have an action that's affirmative of enabling a policy, it will actually automatically create an alert. If we wanted to create an alert ourselves, we could go off and create our own alert in here, but it will actually do that for you if you forgot to do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my documents. I've got all of these pictures, which you can see is just me being lazy. I'm going to start deleting my pictures. And I can select like multiple at a time, and it's letting me delete these pictures. Now, oops, I just tried to open. See, my drawing is great there. Now, at some point, I think that's about right, I can no longer delete these pictures. Now, it's going to ask me to continue. This is just Windows. I can put in an admin. It's not going to let me continue. This file is now blocked. So even if I log in as an admin, I can't delete these pictures because this policy has been enabled. I can't write files. I can't do anything on my system that requires writing. Now, I can still use unprotected data. So I think my desktop is unprotected. I can still mess around with that. My documents, my downloads, my network shares are not protected data because that policy has now been enabled. Again, if I go into my response center, I can see I've got another victim machine flagging up alerts here as well, but I can see my demo desktop has a block write access on mass delete policy triggered. I can click on the view action to see what file's been deleted, and then I can make exceptions. So let's just say, for argument's sake, this file is being deleted every day. And I can also do exceptions by SHA, the parent process, or any other value, or even the username. So I can say this user is excluded if I wanted, but I can make exceptions on any of these. And of course, I probably wouldn't make an exception to this. I'd more likely edit the policy. If I wanted to edit the policy to be a little less aggressive, I could go into here and say, okay, maybe when there's 200 files, and that will change the policy going forward. If I just wanted to make an exception, say for example, I had advanced IP scanner being alerted, but the IT guy runs that every day to scan his network, maybe I'll add an exception to his computer or her computer to do that. So in this case, this is just a user doing a cleanup. I'm going to allow that to continue to run. I'll give you another couple of examples of policies in ThreatLocker Ops that are really good. And these are just the policies that are actually visible to you. ThreatLocker continuously adds policies for known indicators of compromise that will automatically pushed out to all of our customers from the master account. So if there's a new vulnerability, say tomorrow on an exchange, and that vulnerability involves this file being changed or this registry key being changed, and we see that, we'd automatically add that policy, and then you would get alerted on that policy when that happens. So the next area is the idea of system restart from MS-config. So we always put a description. This is not directly relating to a MITRE ATT&CK framework, so there's no MITRE ATT&CK link, but restarting from MS-config allows you to reboot your computer into safe mode. This is obviously an indicator of compromise. Someone could be trying to disable your things. So what we say here is, if the event log ID is 1074, the event log message is MS-config, that's basically saying this is the source of the restart. Then we're going to create an alert. We're going to raise the threat level. Now, we can raise the threat level on all of these alerts. And what we can do with them is we can actually create an alert to say, if threat level is above, say, 1000, we'll say lockdown computer. And we can literally go into here and say, if this happens, lockdown, threat level, current threat level is greater than 1000. And we can put whatever number we want in here. Typically, we recommend 1000 as a good number, and that's what you should aim your policies to be. We can just say lockdown machine here. Now, when we lock down this machine, what will happen is the machine will essentially be rendered useless. I mean, it will still check into ThreatLocker and you can still unlock it, but the user will not be able to click on the start menu even, because all the DLLs that load in the start menu will be blocked. Any executions, any read writes, any network traffic will automatically be blocked. We could also isolate if we wanted to be a little less extreme on the computer there. But in this case, that's the kind of policy you can create. A couple of other examples here. So MS-config was executed. That's always good because you're getting there before the restart. So MS-config generally shouldn't be executed by users. So having a warning, high number of elevated system tools. So this one here is a MITRE ATT&CK framework one. We say the full path matches PowerShell. The action type is elevate. We're just going to create 50 on the threat level, and we're going to create an alert for your SOC. So these are the type of things that we can do. Now, of course, we're adding all of the other tools like the Mimikatz and the advanced IP tools, or a new domain admin account being created. Because if you're on a domain controller and someone creates a new domain admin account, then you want to know that that happened, because that is often an indicator of someone on your network. And if it was you creating one, that's okay. It goes to your SOC. You created a new domain admin account. You say, yes, this was me. I'm going to approve this. And that alert is now dismissed. And again, we can put those threat levels into our considerations there. There are probably, here's another one that I like. I think this should be on every single computer. If you receive a remote desktop connection from a public IP address, this one is actually does not match. We said here destination port is 3389 and the source does not match this. We can also use tags and private IP addresses in here. Then we're going to create an alert saying there's a remote access connection from a public IP address. Finally, I'm just going to show this one here because this is really useful. High number of invalid logins. We see these all the time. These are such basic indicators of compromise. Someone's left RDP open, someone's computer has a remote access tool, someone's sitting there banging on the keyboard trying to get in or using a remote access tool. Here we basically said if the event log ID matches 4625, it's in the Windows security, and the occurrence is greater than 20, then create an alert saying there's a high number of invalid logins. Again, we could do something with this to say, hey, if there's a high number of invalid logins, shut down 3389 or enable a network policy to shut down 3389. I can literally go into here or disable a policy that's allowing it. It doesn't have to be enable. I could go in and create a second action to say enable network control policy. And in this case, I could pick any of my policies here, or I could say disable, because there's two ways you can do this. You can have a policy to allow the port to be open and then close it, or you could have a policy to close the port on the event of something bad happening. Of course, everything that happens in here is logged in real time. So you can see everything in the Unified Audit, you can see everything in the response center. You get the support of our cyber heroes. So if you haven't looked at ThreatLocker yet, please come request a demo, ask your account manager, ask your solution engineer to show you this, enable it on your account, have a play with it. Because what this allows you to do is, one, really get ahead of these attempted attacks, find bad configurations, find bad things that are happening, and lock down your system better. But in addition to that, it also allows you to save some money. If you've got lots of other tools that are looking for detection and response, ThreatLocker is already doing the blocking at the beginning. So just use this, replace one of your other tools. It gives you a really good tool for being alerted about suspicious behavior, but it also allows you to lock down and isolate. I'm going to finish out by just showing you. I'm going to jump out of my browser here because I'm on the machine that I'm about to lock down. I'm going to show you what it actually looks like if you lock down the machine. I've just closed out the browser, switched Hyper-V because I'm using a VM here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my response center. Oh, actually, I cleared the alerts, but I'll go into my computers. I can do it right from here as well. I'm going to click on my demo desktop, and I'm going to click on ThreatLocker Ops here, and I'm going to click the lockdown button. Now, the difference between isolate and lockdown, just a reminder, isolate disconnects all network traffic, so you can't browse the internet, you can't do things like that, whereas lockdown just breaks everything. You may be able to log in and click the start button, but you're not going to be able to open any program. So yeah, this is a bad computer. So I can put in here lockdown, and when I do this, you can see the screen's actually already gone black here. Sometimes if I press Control-Alt-Delete, I can get it back to life. So, and I can get to a login screen, but most of the time I can't even do that because we're literally blocking every single Windows file that's happening there. Now, of course, if you do lock down a machine and you say, okay, I now need to get on this, I need to know what to do, I can go back into the computer here. I can click on ThreatLocker Ops and I can remove the lockdown, or I can switch to isolate, which is a little bit less aggressive. In this case, I'm going to say computer good. And the lockdown will now be removed. And it literally takes about 30 seconds for that machine to come back to life. Sometimes Hyper-V is that there you go, it's back to life already, and I can log back in as normal. So again, if you need to find more information about it, if you want to get set up on a trial or you want to take advantage of any of the special deals we've got this January, please contact us, go to your account manager, go to the Cyber Heroes, and they will get someone to help you with that. Once again, thank you very much for your time. On February 26th to 28th, we are hosting a conference in Orlando, Florida, Zero Trust World. We want to make sure that the entire IT community is better supported to protect themselves from the attackers. Attackers are getting more advanced, smarter in what they do. AI is helping them, and we need you to be aware of those threats. So what we do is we host a cybersecurity conference where we give two sides to it. One is you get hands-on experience. You use things like rubber duckies, flippers. We're going to have labs set up where you can learn and you can train how to put yourself in the mindset of a hacker. And we're going to teach you tricks from malware, tricks for defending against malware. And then on the other side, we're going to show you how can you secure your environment? How can you properly use ThreatLocker? How can you defend and properly configure your Office 365 or your Windows servers or your Mac? So we have all these cool sessions that's going to help you as an IT professional. And what we want to achieve and what we do achieve every year is you going away a little bit smarter. If you want to find out more about Zero Trust World, go to ThreatLocker.com, top of the page, Zero Trust World. At the moment, we are giving full refunds to anyone who passes their Cyber Hero test on site. So if you want to sign up, if you're interested in coming and you don't want to pay the $500 for the ticket, you can just click on the sign up. And when you do come on site, just make sure you use ThreatLocker University before you come, take your Cyber Hero exam. And then when you get your Cyber Hero exam, you'll also get a full refund of your ticket. A couple of other cool points about Zero Trust World. We have Mark Rober, the NASA engineer who's very well known on YouTube for blowing up glitter bombs, but also has taken down some pretty big crime gangs with his revenge techniques against scammers. So he's a speaker there, and a bunch of other great speakers as well. So we look forward to seeing you there as well. Thank you very much for your time today.